We're talking with Tim Verghese from Inside Nebraska. Tim, I know you stay super dialed in kind of in college football as a whole. So I was kind of curious what your thoughts were. Ryan Day got this big extension from Ohio State.
Is it 787 or 778?
It puts him at about 12 a year. So it had to be 787
Okay.
would be 12 a year,
Okay.
12 and change a year. Which makes him second highest paid head coach in college football after Kirby Smart. So if you're paying a guy $12 million a year and it's either Ryan Day or Kirby Smart, Tim, where do you feel better about your $12 million being?
I mean, personally, Kirby Smart, just because I'm a Kirby guy. Like I would die for Kirby Smart. I'm not even joking. Like that's a man I would send my like kids to play for. Like I trust that man with defensive football, and just football in general. Like I trust him in building. Like those guys in that Georgia locker room would die for it. Like you hear the way they talk about him and the way they defend him and the way they are coming out of the way that like guys love Saban, of course, and guys like Day, but it's not the same. Like guys love Kirby Smart. And I think I don't think there's a coach better positioned for what the sport requires moving forward than Kirby Smart. Now that's just me personally. I do think Ryan Day. I mean, I'll backtrack on some of the comments I made just because I think the situation's changed. This fall I said Ryan Day multiple times across multiple platforms. I thought Ryan Day was soft in big games. I didn't think he oftentimes he kind of like backed away when the moment arrived. He completely changed that narrative this year by and the run he did it on completely eliminates those narratives forever. No matter what happens in the Michigan game moving forward, I think he still, for the sake of the fan base, does probably have to win that Michigan game next year to keep people off of his back. And I think when you look at what that roster is going to be next year, they're still going to be Ohio State, but they're probably going to take a step back just because they lose so many veterans. But I think he's a guy that has kind of answered that, and I like the fire from Ryan Day as of late. Like I think there's additional motivation there. I think he's gotten a taste of success, and I do follow a couple of the Curb Street or Nick Saban described him as like the fringe lunatics or lunatic fringe of the Ohio State fan base. I do follow some of those guys, and I do keep up with those guys, and they themselves are like, hey, Ryan Day's got to turn the corner. Like going into that national championship and coming out of that, like he's a fiery competitor. Like I don't think you can dismiss this national championship as they had far and away the best roster. I think there's part of it that Ryan Day kind of recognizes what it takes now to win at an elite level, to win these big games. I have some questions about some of the decisions he's made. I think the Virginia Tech hire to replace Justin Fry is good, but I don't know if internally promoting Heartline is the best idea. I thought you benefited from having a brilliant mind like Chip Kelly in the room, and I thought as Ohio State, you had the resources to kind of be aggressive there again, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to kind of sit on your hands and be like, okay, well, the formula works. This all works. We're just going to promote from within and we're going to keep this going. When that's not what worked. You have to break the mold to get to this point. You have to hire Chip Kelly to get to this point. And we'll see what happens. But the Heartline thing is something. Heartline's a great coach, and I think he deserves this. But there are some guys that are better positioned to be, or better as position coaches than they are as coordinators.
So, TV, the importance, though, if you're at Ohio State and you're looking at your roster as it currently sits, the defensive coordinator position seems to be the one that will be, more important isn't, I'm going to say more important. Like, I mean, he's got to get that one right, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I have no idea where he goes there. I kind of like completely kind of blanked on the fact that Jim Knowles is gone, but yeah, Jim Knowles isn't there anymore. So yeah, they have to get it right. And I mean, there's again the other issue, and there's two sides of the coin of this on this Ohio State thing. I think Ryan Day has turned a corner, but I also think that winning has also kind of given Ohio State as a program this like, okay, well, everything we've done so far is right. Like our process has been correct to this point. And it hasn't really. They haven't really done a great job of addressing the offensive line. Well, I mean, the hire they made just now at offensive line coach, that's a good recruiter right there. Like, so I think they're going to do a better job moving forward, but it doesn't take away from the fact that they lack depth on that line right now. On the defensive side of the ball, Larry Johnson's a very good coach, and he should be credited for landing JT and Jack and keeping those guys around. But as a recruiter, he just is a bit over the hill. You look at some of the guys on the defensive side of the ball. You like what they have in the secondary, but up front, I think they need some work. So yeah, they have to get this defensive coordinator thing right because, yeah, I mean, you have to keep Caleb Downs happy. You have to have, I mean, like who are their edge rushers next year? Can you guys name them? I mean, they're good, they're solid players, but it's not like they have another Jack Sawyer or JT when Jack and JT were coming in, they were coming in behind elite edge rushers. You could be like, okay, well, JT's coming in, Jack Sawyer's coming in. You don't really have that right now.
Tim, go ahead.
It's such an interesting. You get the big contract, the 780 some plus. He's a guy whose personality, he revs high, and clearly he's not afraid to lob the bird, right? Like, I told you so, you guys made me miserable. Like, you can hear it when he takes the mic. I wonder what happens. Does he stay angry? Does he stay edgy? Because he did everything. He's done what people said he couldn't do, and he was spurred on by the negative talk. Like, I wonder what's the next phase for him emotionally to attack this thing with the long-term deal. I wonder if it fits his personality.
I wonder a little bit if the,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I get what you're saying though.
He's kind of he's like, yeah, take, like he seems like a take that guy. So kind of what's next?
Right. And I think it does weigh on him that he hasn't won against Michigan in 4 years. I think that's the motivation going into this year. But you beat Michigan this year. What's the motivation from there? You know what I mean? Like, is it just keep beating Michigan, get back to the national championship? Like, is that motivation there for him? Yeah, I kind of have those same questions as well. I will also say
Michigan's going to be better than they were a year ago, and I don't know.
Oh, yeah. And not just this year, moving forward. I mean, as long as Bryce Underwood's there, that program is going to be the trajectory is pointing way up for them. So yeah, we'll see. I wonder kind of how the game's going to look this year, because I think we're going to see a Ohio State team that takes a bit of a step back, and we're going to see a Michigan team that takes a bit of a step up, and how that factors in when they meet on the field here at the end of this season. I wonder how that goes. I don't have a great read on that game or like less than a year out, but I'm curious how that game goes.
Tim, are you surprised at all that they gave him this extension? Like, I know he won the national championship, right? So it feels ridiculous to even say this. Like, are you a little surprised they didn't wait to give him the extension until after he beat Michigan?
No, I mean, I get it, but also, yeah, you're not wrong. Like, again, members of the lunatic fringe, but there were people in that Ohio State fan base that were like, even if we win the national championship, do we just...
I also think it's a pretty big fringe. Like, it might be the minority, but it's not a small minority.
Yeah, it's not at all. Like they call it the lunatic fringe, but it's like it's the most vocal portion of that fan base for the most part. Like it is the group that push. Like they don't win it without the lunatic fringe. As weird as it sounds, because like you're saying, Ryan Day needed someone to be like, "Hey, take that. Hey, I did it." Like if that lunatic fringe doesn't exist, then Ryan Day doesn't have that group to be like, "Haha, I did it." Because like there's no one there. He can't say that to me. He can't trash talk Michigan at all right now. Because Michigan fans are the ones that are laughing at him the most. Besides. Kind of some at times his own fan base. He can't do that because he hasn't beaten Michigan. And so, yeah, like I'll say this too, because I was about to ask this question too. In every sport, you win the national championship and you have to pay this big contract to extend. Is it worth it because you got the championship? Like, is this extension worth it because you won the national championship?
Like, no matter what happens,
no matter what happens moving forward, is it all worth it because you just won the championship? I think so.
I mean, maybe, but I just like you already got the championship, right? So you're not really paying for the championship. It's not like you went out and paid Ryan Day $12 million a year and then he got you the championship. You're kind of paying for a thing that already happened. And I sit here and I go, okay, so if Ohio State goes 10-2 this year, and one of those losses is to Michigan, and then they lose in the first round of the college football playoff, that's not a crazy scenario, right? Like that's
not at all. Yeah, I mean that's very plausible. Especially again, I think they're going to take a step back.
Like, how good does Ohio State feel about $12 million a year at that point?
Yeah, we'll see.
You know what I mean? Like that's kind of like it's a super weird situation where this guy's coming off a national title. We all think he wins a ton. We all think he's a pretty good coach, and we're all like, I don't know. Like I don't know if that's like the timing felt super weird to me, even coming off the title.
Yeah, and yeah, like I we'll have to see what happens this coming year because how does the fan base react to, again, what I think is going to be a bit of a down year? Like, I don't think they're winning the national championship or the Big Ten this year. I think that's Penn State's or Oregon's to win. I think there's a room for another program to potentially rise up in there, but um, it's weird. It's like, because if I'm an Ohio State fan at this point, I have the long view. I'm like, okay, it's not about this coming season. It's about the season after. Like, this coming year is about development. We're gonna have to attack the transfer portal. We have to build this roster up, because you did have an elite recruiting class, and you have young guys like Devin Sanchez and Riley Pettijohn, 2 5-stars at linebacker and DB specifically, that I think are going to step into your roster and make you better. I think both those guys have like kind of Caleb Downs level impact in year one, or like, like pretty influential impacts in year one with the program. And so how do you build around that? How high is your ceiling? Because for me, if I'm a Ohio State fan, the goal is about 26, not 2025.
So let me ask you something. I want to stay topical for a second here at TV, especially on the heels of last week. Venables saying he's going to call plays in 2025 defensively. Would you rather be a fan of Oklahoma's defense or Notre Dame fans coming off the season you have hiring Chris Ash?
No, Notre Dame. I mean, I'll be honest.
Interesting.
That Oklahoma situation is weird.
Very,
I like Brent Venables. I think he's a very good defensive mind. I think he's got far too much on his plate, and it's weird because he is essentially like, he's saying these things like, "Oh, I'm going to call the defense." When were you not? When was he not? Like, when Ted Roof was there this last season, when was he not? It's still his defense, and yeah, they've been good. Have they made the offensive strides necessary to move forward? Do they have the personnel defensively to kind of compete at the elite level in the SEC? That schedule's brutal again, man. Like, Oklahoma's in a weird situation right now. I mean, I asked like people down there too, because this isn't just a current coach thing. It's kind of like for a bigger picture perspective, I think they're having a bit of an identity crisis. Like, okay, let's say they move on from Venables and they hire this exciting coach and it all works out. Where's the money coming from? Because that's the big issue right now. They can't outspend other people on the on the recruiting trail. Is a new coach inspiring a bunch of donors? Why wouldn't Brent Venables inspire a bunch of donors? He went to the program. Like, that should be the guy that inspires the program. Like, and yeah, I mean, the money's not coming. Like, especially with where Texas is now. I think what's weird is kind of the position they're in, where these 3-4 years of Brent Venables just happened to be occurring at the time that Texas is making this ascent to this powerhouse program, this Georgia, this Alabama level program, where they are a well-oiled functioning machine, and they can go up and say, "Hey, Oklahoma, you're not beating us for this guy out of Dallas. You're not beating us. If we want to recruit, we're going to outspend you and we're going to out-recruit you." And they've done that for the most part. One guy, Michael Fasusi, 5-star offensive tackle that did end up at Oklahoma, and that's just a kid that like preferred to stick with his commitment, but very easily could have gone to A&M, very easily could have gone to Texas, had bigger offers from both of those programs, but ultimately decided to stick because he's committed. There's only so many of those guys that Oklahoma can pull from the state of Texas.
Tim Verghese, Inside Nebraska. Great stuff as always, Tim. We appreciate it, and enjoy your Super Bowl weekend.
Yes, sir. Likewise. Appreciate y'all.